Let's see how we can go about multiplying surds. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 or 4 examples of multiplying through expressions involving surds. And the idea is that we basically would just multiply through across the expression and simplify and combine pieces wherever possible. Now, this is probably one of the simpler operations that you'll do with surds. You'll probably see why in a moment. Let's take a look at the basic idea. So we have to multiply the square root of 5 and the square root of 7, 2 surds. Okay, the idea here is that we're going to bring them in under the square root sign, okay? Because we're allowed to say that anytime we have the square root of a times the square root of b, that's the same as the square root of a times b. So we can use that as a rule generally. So the square root of 5 times 7. I'm just pushing that down a little bit further, the square root of 35, because 5 times 7 is 35. And that's basically all it is. Now, this particular surd here is in simplest form. There's no perfect square factors inside of there. If there were, you'd need to extract them out to write the surd in its simplest form. Let's have a look at another one. 3 times the square root of 13 times 4 times the square root of 7. Notice that this time we've got some non-surds out the front, and we're going to just multiply throughout. So to do this, you've got to remember that really there's little hidden multiply symbols in there that for simplicity we just don't write. So we're really saying 3 times root 13 times 4 times root 7. Multiplication we can change the order of, so it's perfectly okay to say that that's 3 times 4 times the square root of 13 times the square root of 7, or 12, 3 times 4, multiplied by, and again using our rule, 13 times 7 under the square root symbol. Completing that, 13 times 7 is going to be the square root of 91. So we have 12 root 91. Again, we want to make sure, but in this case there are no perfect square factors of 91, so we're in our perfect simplest form for that multiplied surd. All right, one more example. Let's take a look at 4 times the square root of 27 multiplied by 3 times the square root of 5. Again, we can change the order of multiplication, put little multipliers in here, to be 4 times 3, and then multiplied by, I'm going to rewrite 27. I can see that's got a perfect square factor of 9. So I'll write that as 9 times 3, and then I've still got this root 5 at the end there. So we're going to get 4 times 3 is 12, times root 9, times root 3, times root 5. Root 9, of course, becomes 3. 12 times 3 is 36. And then we have root 3 times root 5, which again we can combine to give the square root of 15. Just checking, no perfect square factors of 15, so we're in our simplest form. Let's take a look at one with some pronumerals in it. I'm going to have the square root of 2 times x to the 5th times y squared. And I'm going to multiply that by the square root of 90 x squared y. Now, I could go straight to putting everything under a single square root sign. That'd be perfectly true. But what I want to do first is actually simplify things. Otherwise, I'll just be making it slightly more complicated before I simplify it. So if I can pull out any perfect squares here, that'll make things easier to work with. So I'm going to rewrite this first one as the square root of 2 times x to the 4, because that's going to be a perfect square. There's one more x left, and a y squared, that's a perfect square. We have 90. 90 is actually equal to 9 multiplied by 10. I should have done that, but I'll have to do it in the next step. X squared y. All right, so we're going to have the square root of x to the 4, that's x squared. The square root of y squared is y. And I'm left with root 2x. I'm going to multiply that by the square root of 9 times the square root of 10. Square root of x squared is x, and I've still got my square root of y. So we have x squared y root 2x times the square root of 9 is 3. I've got an x I can pull there, and the square root of 10y. Now I'm going to start to combine the non-surd parts. So we'll have 3x cubed now, x squared times x, and my y. And then combining the surd parts, 2 times 10 is 20, x and y. Now I can see, I'll leave the part out the front, I can see I've got a square root of 20. 20 is equal to 4 times 5, and 4 is a perfect square. So I'm going to have the square root of 4, that'll be another 2, and the square root of 5xy. Finishing it up, 2 times 3 is 6, x cubed y, and the square root of 5xy. Nothing else I can do with that surd, that's in its simplest form. Everything's combined out the front here, and there we have our simplest form for that multiplied expression up the top there. So that's multiplying surds, multiplying throughout, and simplifying and combining things where possible, always remembering to simplify those surds if you can, and using this little rule right here. The square root of a times the square root of b is the square root of a times b.